Old Man Withers lived alone. His house creaked like it was whispering secrets, secrets no one wanted to hear.
Billy, a curious boy, lived next door. He always peeked through the overgrown hedges. He dreamed of adventures, adventures he knew he shouldn't have.
One hot summer day, Billy saw the attic window open. It was usually nailed shut. He felt a pull towards the mysteries within.
Billy snuck into the old man's yard. He felt a chill. The air grew cold. The house seemed to watch him. The attic stairs groaned, each step a protest. Dust swirled in the air. A single beam of sunlight cut through the darkness. Billy coughed. The air was thick and stale. He could smell age, decay, and something else, something sweet and sickly in the corner. Something gleamed. A lantern made of tarnished silver. It was ornate, beautiful. Billy reached out. The lantern felt ice cold. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands. It was heavier than it looked. He shook it. Something rattled inside. That night, Billy couldn't sleep. His mind was racing, thoughts swirling like a storm. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. He kept seeing the lantern, hearing the rattle. It was as if the lantern had a life of its own, calling out to him, beckoning him to come closer. He felt drawn to it. The pull was irresistible, like a magnet. He couldn't shake the feeling that the lantern held some kind of secret, something he needed to uncover. He had to go back. The urge was too strong to ignore. He knew it was dangerous, but curiosity got the better of him. He crept out of bed, slid open his window, and ran. The cool night air hit his face, but he didn't care. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and excitement. The old man's house loomed before him. It looked even more menacing in the moonlight, shadows casting eerie shapes on the walls. He felt no fear now, only excitement. The thrill of the unknown was too enticing. He had to find out what was inside. The attic window was still open. He climbed inside. The air was thick with dust, and the floorboards creaked under his weight. The darkness seemed deeper now. He felt a presence, something watching him. He raised the lantern. The light flickered, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. It glowed with a faint blue light. The glow was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The shadows danced around him, twisting, turning into monstrous shapes. He could feel their eyes on him, watching, waiting. The air grew colder and he shivered, but he couldn't look away. The lantern's light was his only anchor in the darkness. Section 4. The lantern's glow. He heard whispers, faint and distant at first, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Soft at first, then louder, more insistent, as if they were trying to tell him something important, something he needed to know. They seemed to be coming from the lantern, calling to him, beckoning him closer. He held it closer, trying to make out the words. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening. He thought he could hear his name faintly at first, then more clearly. He felt dizzy, as if the ground beneath him was shifting. The room spun around him, the walls closing in. The shadows swirled around him, faster and faster, like a dark vortex. He closed his eyes, trying to steady himself. He couldn't breathe, the air thick with mist and whispers. He was falling into the lantern's light, a bright, blinding light that seemed to pull him in, deeper and deeper. When he opened his eyes, he was somewhere else entirely. The attic was gone, replaced by a strange, unfamiliar landscape. He was surrounded by mist, a cold grey mist that seemed to seep into his very bones. The air was heavy, filled with an eerie silence. He felt a chill run down his spine, realizing he was truly alone. Section 5. The attic's embrace. In the heart of the night, the attic seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets of the past. He called out, but there was no answer. The silence was deafening, a void that swallowed his voice whole. Only the echo of his own voice returned, distorted and eerie, as if the forest itself was mocking him. He was alone, lost in a world of shadows and whispers. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. He wandered for what felt like hours, each step heavier than the last, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. The lantern was his only guide, its flickering flame a fragile beacon in the oppressive darkness. Its blue light cut through the mist, but it couldn't show him the way out. He stumbled and fell, the ground cold and unyielding beneath him. The lantern rolled away from him, its light dimming as it tumbled across the forest floor. The mist seemed to reach out, to grab him, to pull him down into its depths. It was as if the forest itself was alive, a malevolent force intent on consuming him. He crawled towards the lantern, his fingers clawing at the damp earth, desperation driving him forward. His fingers closed around the cold metal. He lifted it up, the light flickering back to life, casting long shadows that danced around him. The mist retreated, but it was too late. The forest had already claimed a part of him, a piece of his soul lost to the shadows forever. Section 60, a flickering memory. Billy was never seen again. The old man's house stood empty, silent, except for the whispers in the attic. Some say the lantern is still there, hidden in the darkness, waiting for another curious soul to find it, waiting to trap them in its web of shadows and whispers, forever lost in the attic's embrace, a flickering memory in the dust. The lantern is forgotten, but the attic remembers, and it waits.